Okay. Okay. Hey, everybody. I'm Luke Kerner with Crypto ZTV and Crypto Mondays, now in VR. And I'd like to thank you for joining us for the first episode of What MetaCartel Did, a monthly conversation focused on the growing MetaCartel universe. I'm excited to be joined on the first call by James Waugh and Drew Harding from the MetaFactory. And each of the guys will talk for about 10 minutes, and then we'll open up the conversation for questions and dialogue with the audience. The call is being recorded and it'll be available for replay on Crypto ZTV channel on YouTube. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to James Waugh. So James.
Nice. Hey everyone, and I guess I don't know if people can ask questions during, if you want to unmute, but I mean it's obviously a pretty low-key conversation, so I'm more than happy to sort of answer any questions as we go through. Let me share my screen. Boom. Can you guys see that?
Yep.
Nice. So it's been an interesting wee while. These are sort of a couple of interesting points that we've been up to recently inside the MetaCartel. The first thing that I thought would be interesting to talk about is sort of like the changing like international landscape and sort of like how digital communities are going to be really important. I think, obviously the corona chaos has sort of taken over the world right now, and, is affecting people's lives in pretty drastic ways. And one of the really interesting things about this sort of corona going on at the moment is that everyone's being forced online, right? Sort of interesting conclusion that I've sort of drawn over the past wee while is that at no point since we created the internet has everyone been pointed towards the internet. And then on top of that, everyone's pointed towards it in like a productive way, right? Like a lot of people have been using the internet over the past 20 years for sort of entertainment, to have fun, to connect with their friends, et cetera, but have never really needed it for productivity, right? Now, maybe everyone in this room is already a bit of a technology nerd or an internet nerd, and we've been using it for productivity for a long time. But that's sort of not where the rest of the world sits. And so one of the really interesting things and learnings inside of MetaCartel recently has been about sort of how do we, what we are as a digital community. And that's what we've been building for the past, over a year now. And there's been a bunch of really interesting, great learnings inside of that. And sort of how do we grow community? How do we engage community? How do we sort of drive for the right outcomes? And that's going to be like sort of hyper accelerated, right, during the current times. And so one of the really big switches, or not switches, but focuses inside of the MetaCartel has been about sort of how do we empower these digital communities, right? I'm doing some really cool stuff in New Zealand with sort of a bunch of sort of regulators here, sort of trying to work out how do we pull some of the learnings from, the MetaCartel crazy technology world and sort of apply them just to humans that are on the internet today. And there's a bunch of different people doing a bunch of different initiatives inside of the cartel that are a little less technology focused and a little more like, okay, shit, digital communities are suddenly the most important thing in the world, single-handedly the single most important thing. And how do we sort of be able to help that and be able to sort of, help the humans, sort of connect in this digital way and move forward sort of during these times. So one of the really big focuses inside of the MetaCartel has been this idea, right? And has been sort of pushing, finding Web2 communities, right, that maybe don't have, that sort of aren't used to this like digital productivity that is necessary, and then sort of seeing how we can help and find them. And so that's sort of, we've internally there's been some discussion and some forum posts, and that's sort of looking like it'll be one of the directions of the MetaCartel overall while we're in this crazy time, is sort of, empowering these digital communities that might not have the same, sort of infrastructure as in, like Web3 infrastructure, in terms of using smart contracts and Ethereum and blah, 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 blah. And they're just sort of, chilling along in using the internet. How do we sort of give them the tools so that they can, the community can be self-owned, right? Drew, and we'll talk about MetaFactory in a second, and that's like a really good example of how, you can sort of take some of the underlying learnings of the Web3 space and then apply them to sort of in a more centralized way, but actually still getting these really powerful outcomes. So that was sort of the first overall point that I wanted to make around, the current sort of chaos that is Corona and how MetaCartel is sort of trying to action plan so that we can sort of help the wider world in this sort of chaotic time. The second thing is the MetaCartel fourth wave of grants. So we gave out a bunch of grants so DeFi Zap, which is a really cool project, which allows you to sort of zap in and out of, so if you imagine if you wanted to go into Compound and then use your CDI to do something else, and then, host a Uniswap pool, and there's all these different steps of smart contracts. DeFi Zap allows you to press one button and go through all of them. The other thing that we give a grant to was Telefuel to build MetaFuel. Telefuel is basically an extension to Telegram that makes it like 1 billion times easier to use. And they're sort of developing something basically specifically for sort of, the needs of MetaCartel. And so a really big grant was given there. I definitely encourage you to check out Telefuel if you're interested. It's basically, yeah, I would Telegram on steroids. It's much, much easier to use. Another initiative that we pushed forward was the Aero Cartel. So hopefully most of you guys are familiar with Aragon and the MetaCartel. And Aragon and the MetaCartel are basically partnering up to find something to give grants to collectively, right? So obviously Aragon has been giving out a lot of grants in the past, and so has MetaCartel. And Aero Cartel is really about sort of finding that middle ground and seeing what projects we can fund that lie inside of that. Another project was Signal DAO. And so Signal DAO is basically, sort of generally using bots to interact with DAOs. That's sort of been one of the really big pushes for the Abridged guys and also some of the other MetaCartel. And it's really been about sort of how do we make it easier to interact with DAOs, right? Right now, you go to the specific web page, you press, these buttons, and then you do blah, 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 blah. That process maybe is not as streamlined as it could be. And interacting with chatbots is pretty easy, right? Yes, no, you can just type things. And the other thing that's really interesting there is sort of connecting a bunch of these different chatbots together. So you can imagine, having a chatbot on Facebook, having one on Telegram, having one on, I don't know, what's another chatting service, Skype, Zoom, and then you can sort of interface with a DAO using these different chat methods, and all of the different chat methods will sort of feed into the same DAO, basically just making the interface significantly easier for DAO. So, this has been wave 4 of the grants. There's a couple more you can find on our Medium blog on the MetaCartel Medium. And really, it's just sort of the latest grants that we've been giving out in order to sort of, drive forward the Ethereum space overall. Obviously in this time of sort of chaos and need, it is really good to be supporting projects, and MetaCartel will certainly continue to do that during these times. Just sort of giving small grants of sort of $1,000 to $10,000, and the grant is one thing, but sort of the dog fooding is the other thing, right? So all of these projects we've been really a big part of sort of pushing forward, making sure that we use it, we bring users to a platform, even if it's only sort of 50 users inside of the crypto space. 50 users actually means a lot. And so we've been, super influential in doing that, and we'll certainly continue to have, wave 5 and beyond in terms of grants we're getting. The final thing that's sort of going on at the moment inside of the MetaCartel is the Dragon Quest virtual hackathon. So there's a QR code there that takes you to the website if you want to learn more. And basically what it is we're just doing a virtual hackathon with a bunch of different sponsors, a bunch of different prizes, a bunch of different bounties. And again, it's just trying to sort of, given the times we're in and given sort of everyone's stuck at home, how to sort of make these, make these digital events happen and make some cool things to get built. So there's a bunch of, Aragon and 3box and a bunch of cool companies have put up prizes, as well as MetaCartel itself. And if you're a hacker, and it's not just like actual hacking, right? So I get that not everyone can study computer science, and I'm a philosopher, so I have no ability to do that. But what's cool about the virtual hackathon is that there's a number of prizes that aren't directly tied to sort of technical hard skills, right? So you can sort of do something that's a little less, hard coded, and then earn some bounties doing that. So yeah, so the Dragon Quest is going on at the moment. It started, what's the date today? So it started about a week ago on the 1st of April, as not an April Fool's joke, it's a legit thing. And it will go through the month with a bunch of different prizes going on there. So definitely check out the Dragon Quest Hackathon. I mean, it's just sort of another thing to do while we're all sitting at home at the moment, and a fantastic initiative by the MetaCartel. So yeah, if you want the QR code, it's there. Otherwise, just like message or ask and we'll be sure to give it to you. Yeah, so the final thing is sort of just going back to this universe. Maybe a few of you have seen this image before. It's been sort of posted all over. But really what it is the MetaCartel is this giant universe, right? And this now already is sort of a couple of months old, and that universe is expanding even more and continue to expand. Through these grants we're giving, through initiatives like the Dragon Quest, and through sort of the wider philosophy of grants are really important, but especially right now focusing on these communities, right? The digital communities. And of course, once you have a digital community, you have humans, and humans are actually the important thing. And once you get enough humans in a room, they sort of coordinate and will make amazing things happen. And that's sort of what this shows of, all of the different projects and spin-offs and people and that have been involved in the MetaCartel universe. And it's exciting to see it expand. So definitely MetaCartel.org has the link to the forum, the link to the Dragon Quest, link to a bunch of cool initiatives there. Definitely check out anything and get involved. So yeah, it's probably a decent update of the sort of last month. So yeah, and one other thing is super thanks to shout out to Lou. I know, I think, there's only a handful of you guys here, but these events are really important, right? Getting these up on YouTube, having this discussion, having a platform to be able to have this, conversation is super important. And Lou's been a wizard in setting this up. So Crypto ZTV, it's just getting off the ground and being able to support that in any way, for you guys attending, for us, speaking is a super great initiative. So yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, well, thanks a lot for that, James, and for the update. So can you talk a little bit just about in the time that you've been involved in MetaCartel, kind of how it's evolved, and where you think that it's kind of heading?
Yeah. So I first sort of met the gang at ETH Berlin last year. We were sitting at a dinner after spending the day hanging out, and I was like, man, you guys have really good ideas. And Peter was sitting next to me, and he was like, well, pledge then. Get involved. Like, what are you doing? If you think we have good ideas, then put money into the DAO and start contributing. And I was like, oh, well, shit, pretty good point. And over that time, I think it's been really interesting. One of the pieces, yeah, this is what I explained to you, Drew, the other day as well. It's sort of maybe that flow is quite interesting. So sort of, ETH Berlin, we start throwing around ideas. Then at ETH in Osaka for DevCon, we started having the conversation about, DAOs are tokens and tokens are DAOs, right? Like there's actually no difference in these, the difference between what a token is and what a DAO share is. It's really just sort of framing. And so that was one of the really interesting learnings then. And then sort of, but we weren't quite ready to announce that to the world, right? Because, last time we did tokens, they blew up, we raised a bunch of money, we sort of fucked it to some extent. And so what we really didn't want is that to happen again. And so then we sort of let that idea, sit for a while. As we got closer to Christmas, I put out or a little bit after Christmas, I put out a blog article talking about that. And there was a few other projects that started to talk about it. And now that we've seen some more sort of, I won't say corporate, but some of these different interests sort of getting involved in that. The likes of PyDAO, right, which is being set up by a bunch of interesting people. Outlier Ventures is now talking about ZipDAO, which is sort of a way to distribute tokens or distribute value using a DAO. There's Hedgic, which is looking at the same, and DeFi Zap. And a really interesting transition that we're starting to see is people starting to use DAOs as like token distribution or value distribution networks. And I think we're going to see that a lot more coming soon, certainly this year. And actually, I think that sort of naturally becomes an angle of the MetaCartel, right? Is we are sort of the wizards at helping you distribute, value or distribute, teams or whatever using these DAO mechanisms. And I think that's becoming a really big part. Not necessarily, just like for profit, how do we have a token, right? But just in a wider sense of like using community owned and community incentivized networks in order to, push the Ethereum and push the overall crypto space forward. Tokens didn't work, right? I mean, I have every token and, support tokens heavily. But, at the same time, I think they haven't worked, right, as intended. And if we had the DAO, if the DAO itself never blew up, right, and we had 14% of all ETH, right, which today would be like billions of dollars sitting inside of a contract, that would have spun the crypto industry, the whole crypto industry, into a very different space, right? There would have been, almost like mandated collaboration between the DAO, right? You wouldn't need to go and raise, token money on the back of your project. You could just go to the DAO and ask for money if it was a good enough idea, and all those projects would have been collaborating. There would have been communities that spun out of that weren't so focused on for-profit activities, right? They were doing different activities. It would have been this whole evolving train of the DAO. And it really feels like over the past sort of 6-12 months, what MetaCartel has been able to spin up with MetaCartel Ventures, collaboration with Aragon, all these different initiatives that have been pushed forward, we really are taking that step of, what the DAO could have been, I think.
So super interesting way to look at it. And I think is a good setup for Drew to start talking about the MetaFactory and what they're up to.
Yeah, sure thing. It actually is incredibly relevant and poignant in terms of what we're trying to accomplish with MetaFactory.
Hey, Drew, is it possible you're, I'm not hearing you very loudly. I don't know if you've got a microphone volume.
Yeah, can you hear me, or is that better?
No, I mean, we can hear you, but not, it's pretty soft.
Interesting.
So maybe just talk a little louder.
Okay, yeah, usually this is pretty good, but yeah, let me know. Is that working for you guys? I don't know.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Yeah, here. Also, let me share my screen as well. I'll present some, make this a little more visually appealing for everybody. So yeah, MetaFactory, as I was kind of mentioning, this is extremely poignant and kind of relevant to what we've been trying to accomplish and our main goals behind MetaFactory. It really is an opportunity to explore DAOs through the lens of apparel brands. MetaFactory was actually incubated and born directly out of the MetaCartel, inspired by initially kind of some conversations amongst some members in Osaka, DevCon last year, and you know, looking at some of the previous experiments around what happened with Unisocks and physical goods combined with tokens and some of the apparel sales there. Also kind of just a desire to see.
I apologize, Drew. I'm not, what is Unisocks?
Oh, Unisocks was the first, I believe, like kind of crypto economic sale of a physical good. It was sold via kind of bonding curve mechanism on Uniswap, but it was a pair of socks. You could buy a token, you could redeem it for the sock, and kind of speculate on the price through the token, and then redeem at kind of any point once that redemption window was opened. We liked that experiment. We thought it was pretty interesting, but decided to make some tweaks to like the overall approach, which I'll kind of get into. But yeah, generally along with that, as you can see here, main inspirations are actually streetwear, hypebeast culture, what's happening with that, gaming, digital or crypto art, if you want to put a label on it. Art is art, but you know what's happening in this space is really interesting in the Web3 world, and general crypto economics. So getting into it, you know, this is a quote by Dr. Charles Seger around belongingness is kind of a basic human need. And we think this kind of speaks not only to DAOs and general communities, but can actually work really well for brands and brand communities as well. So, you know, looking at, again, specifically say streetwear and hypebeast culture, Supreme, Yeezy, these things, there's obviously been some, you know, the interest and you know, audiences that are created around these companies. It's obviously somewhat driven by secondary market speculation, scarcity, and these things. But I think there's something a little bit more fundamental too around kind of belongingness and the desire to be a part of something exclusive, to be a part of something cool, something more than yourself. And, you know, we started to look at this and say, you know, is there an opportunity to actually present communities and individuals with a way to participate in that brand beyond just associating or recognizing themselves by wearing a good or purchasing a good. You know, and the other interesting thing is everybody's been super hyper focused on DeFi as this, the sole kind of survive, or like, I guess, attraction of DeFi or of crypto, of Web3. They see, you know, decentralized finance is kind of like being a huge draw. But even with, you know, at its best, 15%, now 8%, I'm not sure where we're sitting now, but, you know, these types of returns on assets, which when you're getting maybe 2-3% from a bank account should look very attractive, still hasn't been enough to cause like a mass adoption event, to cause most people to come over and look at these things. It's still kind of us within Web3 and within this crypto native niche that are focusing and playing with these things. And, you know, we believe that communities can actually act as a more powerful catalyst to kind of activate mass adoption, and actually have more of an emotional resonance than a return on an asset. The ability to be a part of something, to build something, to create culture, etc.
Hey, Drew, when you're thinking about, okay, so this is kind of your inspiration, but I was talking about like from a brand that exists now, offline, is that what you're getting to here?
Well, I mean, a brand can apply in many different senses. So, I mean, I guess like I'm thinking of brand as community, community as brand in some sense.
Sure. Yeah. Are
Yeah.
there any ones that have been inspirations to think, yeah, if we can, you know, take what they've done and bring it online and
Generally speaking, I'd say lifestyle brands or anything that kind of falls into that category is probably the most relevant or kind of poignant in terms of like where we're looking. But we're actually trying to take it a step further, where it's not just a resonance in the sense of that this brand resonates with like my principles or my goals, my values. It's more I can directly participate in crafting this brand and in driving this brand and directing it to fit and to inspire others in that sense. So it's moving it from more of a passive to an active participatory I guess engagement or opportunity. So yeah, again, looking back at our inspiration a little bit, this is obviously the streetwear embodied, the Supreme shirt, the Yeezy shoes, whatnot. And again, these markets are driven primarily by scarcity. If you know anything about some of these companies, Supreme especially, they've had resounding success selling everything from a boxing bag to a brick, like a literal Supreme brick. They recently did the Oreo announcement, which was pretty funny, around the red Oreo versus the black cookie with the, you know, so they do all these really clever mashups. You know, they started as a simple, small skate shop, right? And they've been able to build this following and this cultural resonance and emotional connection with their audiences that many other brands have aspired to try and achieve, and some have been able to. And from a scarcity standpoint, you know, this is something that's also very familiar to those of us in Web3, crypto space. You're seeing that within assets, within NFT, as a crypto art, obviously OpenSea known origin. This is where, you know, NFT marketplaces, where a lot of these things, these scarce gaming assets, these scarce wearables, virtual lands, are all kind of transacting, and these markets, especially around those specific assets, have kind of been exploding. Combine that with what we've learned from gaming specifically. Yeah, if you're not familiar with this guy, this is the blue party hat from the RuneScape. You look at Fortnite, they, you know, a multi-million-dollar company basically built on the back of selling aesthetic skins with no actual effect on gameplay. And they're not the only one. Riot, League of Legends, this is becoming a very common thing in terms of digital expression. And that's kind of interesting too, because I talked about previously how the attraction from a lot of these brands is obviously the desire to be part of something exclusive or bigger than oneself. But in a digital sense, that's probably even more relevant, because, you know, you have an opportunity to represent yourself virtually. That is how you see as the real you, right? It's you have more opportunity to be able to kind of fully customize, whether that be through an actualization of your physical self and your physical or your real world existence, or to completely remake yourself in your own kind of vision in those worlds. Enter some of these bonding curve, crypto economic experiments around, you know, physical goods mashed up with tokens. And now what we're trying to do, DAOs, and we're basically kind of combine all that stuff together, and that's where MetaFactory came from. We're also throwing in a little bit of game theory, game mechanics, FOMO 3D style, so to kind of make it a fun, engaging experience. But yeah, generally, all these things have kind of been thrown into the cauldron, experimented with, explored over the last couple of months by our team and the communities that we've been in touch with, to lead to the idea of creating basically brand factories, brands that are communally shared by the original members who participate in the membership auction, the artists themselves or the creators, there could be multiple, and then the MetaFactory as well as the production, fulfillment, packaging, and technology solution provider. This is the MetaFactory Pagoda. It's one of kind of multiple headquarters or locations in crypto voxels, which is one of the more prominent virtual worlds. And this is kind of, you know, one of the things that's really unique about what we're doing too is, while we're focused on the production and creation of physical goods, we're also offering some of the first like opportunities or brands that will be selling digi-physical product apparel, meaning everything we produce physically, we will also be producing a digital counterpart or wearable for these virtual worlds, for possibly some game partnerships, various other things. These are aesthetic skins that, again, allow you to personalize your avatar, or in our sense, it's kind of the ability to wear, an amazing jacket or a really cool hoodie in the real world, and then throw it on and also represent or actualize yourself in that digital or virtual space as well. This was a commission and working with partnership with a lot of money. He's a really popular artist, and we've been collaborating kind of with the whole crypto art scene in establishing exactly how to build these things and build brands through collaboration with them as creators and as initial artists, along with providing an opportunity for the community to participate in the governance direction and the responsibility and the rewards of that. So how it works, artists initially will provide a style guide as well as a kind of an initial product to go or to launch as the kind of first membership auction or their Genesis auction. What an individual is purchasing during a membership auction is basically the ability to participate in the governance, the direction, the creation of products, the choice of how those products are sold, and as well as to share in the success and the profits of that brand generally. MetaFactory itself, again, handles all the production, fulfillment, packaging. We lift all that off the artists, provide them with a new canvas for their creative works, and really democratize the process of apparel and brand apparel creation, or apparel brand creation, which is notoriously kind of a challenging thing. We're also, to be fair, we're focused on really ground up, custom cut and sew builds in terms of the products themselves. We're not, we can offer on-demand printing that kind of all those cafe press or Teespring or like businesses, but we're really focused on being able to produce completely ground up custom work, some of which I'll show you guys in a sec. And then the governance and in terms of the responsibilities as well as the rewards are split between MetaFactory as production technology partner, the artist and creator, and the community who participate in the original kind of membership auction. This is an example of kind of the soon to be unveiled auction page, which is where we will be offering membership into brands as well as the products themselves that are sold at auction. We have a number of different sales and auction strategies for how things are sold, but generally this is how products and memberships will be auctioned off. So you're basically placing a bid. There will be a minimum reserve. Upon placing the bid, you'll receive the product. You also receive a share of membership, a percentage of membership proportionate to your bid. So if you bid in high, you're going to receive more share of the governance and the rights to kind of everything that comes with that. This is the original MetaFactory jacket and MetaFactory bomber. It's actually going up for auction starting this weekend. So we're really excited about that. It's a reversible bomber. This is the front, back, and then reversed back, front. And this was kind of a way for us to show artists what could be done in terms of a completely custom build. You know, the hardware needs to be reversible. We can print on both sides. We have full flexibility of print and design all across this entire thing. So working with the production partner to produce this completely limited run. Another look. And then, yeah, we have a number of artist launch partners, which has grown actually since this. The first of which will be Twisted Vacancy, if you're familiar with the space. A lot of money, Skeeny, Van. These guys have all helped in directing both the kind of goals and the general process around how these are going to work. And they'll be some of the first they'll be the creators or the artists behind some of these first brands. The brands themselves may not be the artist name, they may be completely unique, but we're going to see basically and play out this experiment of creators, artists, and community again, collaborating together and focused on apparel specifically, and from like a product and subject matter initially, but this is something that could really apply to any product or to any brand. So we're really kind of taking that DAO, that community effort that James was talking about, and just focusing it on through this lens of apparel brands, and seeing if we can't use this to play out how a kind of for-profit business or a for-profit organization that has real-world touch points around physical goods and whatnot can work, can exist. So some more information about us, or if you want to follow.
That's cool. Can you talk about what the benefits have been for being part of the MetaCartel ecosystem?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that MetaFactory probably wouldn't exist without kind of the collaboration, the inspiration, and the conversations that have occurred and been incubated within the MetaCartel. You know, if you can kind of see how it's an extension, a very specific extension of like a greater DAO, community DAO conversation and participation. You know, many of the members who are directly involved in the creation and building of MetaFactory are MetaCartel members. You know, we're the ones that are pushing that experiment to another level around, you know, it's easy for those of us in Web3, in this kind of space to make that leap. We've wrapped our heads around what DAOs can be. We've wrapped our heads around remote communities, and you know, being able to condense that, package it, and offer an opportunity for someone who's outside of is kind of our hope and opportunity. And hopefully through MetaFactory, they find MetaCartel, they find all of Web3, they find that, you know, what's happening in this space is bigger than magic internet money. It's an opportunity to find like-minded people sharing similar values, collaborate with them in a remote or a distributed manner, and build not just communities, but businesses, brands.
Very, very cool. So if anybody has questions, you can put them in the chat, and we're fine unmuting the microphones so that you can ask them directly. So
one question we have here from a random individual, Alex, is when's the jacket coming out? Oh, this weekend you said, right?
Yeah, we're aiming for Friday. I'm hopeful that will go live. I expect it will, but if not, definitely within like this weekend, I would expect. The auction itself will probably run for about 10 days. So there'll be plenty of time to explore, get involved, make a bid yourself. And we're gonna be releasing a bunch of articles and more informative kind of details around what it is, how it works, and why you'd wanna get involved. So.
Awesome. How many jackets are there gonna be?
We're looking to sell 42 memberships, 42 jackets for this for the MetaFactory brand. At least this run, we anticipate there will be future opportunities where not only will we allow existing members to redeem and exit or take some of their profits, but also then offer a secondary membership auction for those who have been following or super excited about something to get in at that point. So it'll probably be a revolving thing a bit. We'll see how it all unfolds and evolves.
Yeah, Alex, do you have anything else to ask?
Yes. Hi. Yeah, basically, so the jacket, so this should go out by end of this week. And so then the token sale is 10 days. And then is the jacket shipped anywhere?
Yeah, so it's essentially like a crowdfunding or a made to order situation, right? So we take, when you make a bid, you're also letting us know the exact size. So once the auction is concluded, we'll know exactly how many jackets to produce, exactly the sizing, and that'll go to run. This also means, however, longer lead times. So depending on the complexity of jacket or the hoodie or the shirt or the pants, whatever it may be, it can take, weeks to get these things produced and then shipped out. But yeah, it'll be internationally served and available. For those that are reluctant to share, addresses or whatnot, we will also, we're hoping to do kind of in-person handoffs also at events, but we're in a situation right now, we're not really sure when said events may start occurring again. So yeah, that's the
Right. Yeah, I'm pretty sure the supply chain is disrupted, and so it's totally acceptable that it's gonna take a long time to deliver. Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, especially in our physical production situation, the supply chain effects have been significant.
Okay, if anybody else wants, they can unmute their mic and ask a question.
Hi guys, thanks for putting on this call. I want to go backtrack like completely, and for a complete newbie in the space, I come from like a total marketing background, so I'm trying to figure out where to start, what information to read, what are the best resources that you guys have out there to actually teach a complete newbie that has like no technical background whatsoever on DAOs, MetaCartel, everything like that.
You want to go, Drew? I can.
I mean, there's a number of articles. There's some good reading material. I personally believe the best way to learn is to kind of just jump in with both feet. And that can be as simple as joining some of the community chats and asking questions. We actually have a chat for the MetaCartel specifically designed to be kind of an entry and a Q&A and an understanding area or chat. So, you can just fire off all the questions, ask for more. You can easily kind of create your own through DAO House, which is kind of like a DAO factory around the Moloch structure.
Yeah.
And yeah, those are going to be more intensive ways of doing it. But I tend to think that you're probably going to accelerate like kind of the understanding and realize that the other big part I think that's important to understand is the technology behind it. It's great, it's powerful, it's what enables all this kind of trust liquidity, which is something one of the MetaCartel members kind of coined or said the other day that really resonated with me. It's great, it's important, but it's also really important to recognize that these are fundamentally human coordination challenges. And a smart contract and this technology can only go so far to really enabling those things. So it's a matter of just recognizing kind of what those tools are and how they're used, but also admitting that at the end of the day, it's really just a way for individuals and communities to kind of work through and especially when it comes to finance management and that stuff, these can be done in trustless ways, but it really is a fundamental human issue. And the more you can keep that in top of mind, the like more successful I think things tend to be. Like for us, proposals usually don't even go to go on chain or officially created until there's been some sort of soft consensus in our forum or in our chat or whatnot. So a lot of that is still occurring in the places you'd expect, versus happening on chain or through this technology and whatnot.
Yeah. Okay.
I guess to add on to that as well, I mean, entirely agree. I think it really is, and that's sort of one of the nice parts about it is like, as someone not overly technical myself, right? Like when looking at the documentation or looking at sort of the conversation, it's a lot less like, okay, this is how smart contract works and this is how the token is minted and shares are given and stuff. And it's a lot more like, okay, this is the culture of the people and this is how we have sort of been able to pull the trigger on stuff. In terms of like some initial reading, I think like probably some of those really early blog posts about the MetaCartel. So if you just go MetaCartel Medium and then just, like scroll to the bottom, there's probably some really good, just like high level content there. Obviously the stuff at the top is good as well, right? But it's maybe like a little bit further up that tree. And then there's some stuff on YouTube as well, just talking about, actually probably a really good one is the one we did last time on Crypto ZTV. Is that up on YouTube, Luke?
Yeah, where we were
Nice.
talking about that.
Lou, I met you at the Dow Stack table at ETH Denver.
Very cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Good to
So
see you.
yeah, probably
Yeah,
pretty decent.
I put in a link too. You know,
Cool.
when I first got into crypto, I followed this link here has like the top 50 most influential writers, crypto writers on Medium per Medium, whatever algorithm they have, it changes all the time. And if you follow all those people, every day you'll get an email with a bunch of stuff on crypto. And what you'll find is, you know, some of the people actually really resonate with you. You know, I think everybody, you know, I think crypto's infinite. Everybody sees something different. Everybody has a different prism they're looking through. And
Yeah.
so, you know, I think it's more learned than it is taught.
Yeah, like I was gonna go on a total, you know, treasure hunt, just asking people all these questions and finding a way to understand everything, because I think the biggest issue we have in the space is actually attracting people that have no knowledge whatsoever to take this first step and actually just figure out what is actually going on and what's, you know, valuable and what's not valuable and where you fit in that picture. And so yeah, that's definitely helpful.
Yeah, so if you'd like, I also like to chime in. So I am not of the Web3 background, but I've recently, in the past few months, kind of jumped in head first. And I kind of came in through the metagame funnels and met the MetaCartel and everyone surrounded there. And I put a link for InterCon. So that was a conference that just happened that was like in the virtual space. And so all of those videos are now up on YouTube. So as James said earlier, you know YouTube's got a great selection of different resources for DAOs and understanding stuff, and you know, people are very happy to tell you what they're working on, and they want people to get involved and participate.
Thanks. Okay.
Yeah, Metagame definitely is. Oh, sorry, Metagame is definitely a good one too. I think metagame.wtf, is that right, Drew?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, metagame. Yeah, metagame.wtf is also, and that's sort of like a much more like nicer, like gamified way to sort of, you know, get a part of the Web3 ecosystem. So it's super, definitely worth looking at and really fun.
It's kind of like a MMO or like a massive multiplayer, massive online kind of gaming platform, but applied to life. You know, you earning reputation points for helping others, for pushing, for guiding the general kind of community towards solving problems or whatever kind of goals are put forth by people. These are all, yeah, MetaFactory, MetaGame, and many of the other kind of initiatives are all really just like funneled versions of the general DAO approach. And I think to your point, they're kind of trying to find what resonates with people who are not crypto native and are, you know, Web 2 or outside of this space, and whether it be wow, like that's a really awesome jacket, or like they come from a gaming background and they understand how like this game coordination works, and so metagame resonates. So all these kind of different like facets and ways for people to explore and be exposed to this awesome opportunity.
Okay, cool. Last chance if anybody has a question or comment. Again, everybody's.
Yeah, I got one. Lou, as Dele. How you doing? Great, really great conversations. I was actually walking my son as you guys were talking, so I was listening attentively, but juggling things as well. But yeah, no, really, I love so I think a couple of things you said really resonated with me. I think the possibility of what could have been had the DAO not been hacked is a really fascinating thought when you look at how the economy has grown since. And I think you're right. It would have been a completely different paradigm for crypto. And it really kind of emphasizes the tragedy of it in many regards, which is not a context I had thought about before. That's really cool. Again, I love the whole sort of community aspect of it, and what you're trying to do in terms of making that human connection. I was particularly intrigued to join this session today, and you know, because we're kind of namesakes in many ways. So our primary project is called MetaMe, which is basically about data ownership, data sovereignty, and data management. But the other project that I'm working on that I'm really interested in discussing with both of you is a comic series that we've launched called Meta Knights. And it's essentially, yeah, the Matrix meets Mr. Robot on the road to Wakanda. It's kind of like the elevator pitch of what it is. But yeah, I'm really interested in figuring out how to work with you guys, and both in terms of, you know, we're looking at certainly, you know, we're basically developing it as non-fungible, as kind of crypto comics, so non-fungible. Each episode is like a non-fungible token, but also really keen to build a community around it and expand it into apparel. It's, you know, obviously the next major place for it is gaming and gamification. But yeah, I'd like to really figure out what's the best way to get in touch with you guys and potentially work with you on building some stuff around that.
Yeah, I'd say I'd definitely be keen to learn. Is there like a website for it so far?
Yeah, there is. So if you go to, it's a bit convoluted at the moment because we're running a crowdfunding, but if you go to metaknights.com, metaknyts.com, and that's going to take you to our crowdfunding page on it. I think there's a link to the comic series. So they're currently published on our production company's platform, which is The Comic Republic. And if you go to thecomicrepublic.com and you look for Meta Knights, you'll find it. If you type in Meta, you'll find it there. And yeah, we're building our own website behind it, but that's still in the offing at the moment.
I'd say an awesome first step would be to, so if you go to metacartel.org, there's a Telegram link.
Yeah.
I can just post it in here actually, 1 second. And then even just like throwing a comment in there, like, and throwing, you know, like a decent thing, being like, hey, this is what we're working on. And then if there's a way, you're like, it sounds like there's definitely a way where we can sort of tie in some of that like culture and community elements to sort of the, you know, what you're building with the comic series. It sounds cool.
Excellent.
I showed the links in the chat too, by the way.
Oh, nice.
Fantastic.
Yep. Thanks, Telly. Okay. Well, look, that was a lot of fun, guys. And you know, we're trending this more into a conversation than a panel. So it's nice that we got folks involved, and you know, I thought it was super interesting conversation. I'll write something up, put it up on YouTube. So thanks, everybody.
Awesome. Thanks, Lou.
Thanks, Lou. Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.
See you, Deli.
All right. See you later, Lou. Sorry, I was trying to open the links before I closed the thing. All right.